Leadership and Personal Development Show. This is the platform where your personal value is enriched on a weekly basis. Springboard is brought to you by Legacy and Legacy and your superstation Joy 99.7 FM. The broadcast is made possible by the collaboration of some of Ghana's finest brands committed to the development of the nation's human capital. Springboard would like to thank these companies for supporting us to bring you our agenda for the year 2020. MTN, Ghana's #1 network, the Enterprise Group, UMB Bank, and Axis Pension Trust. Let me say a big thank you to Graphic Business, our print media partner. Thank you all for joining us tonight on Joy FM and also on Facebook. My name is Albert Okran, and I'm here with my virtual academic board chaired by Comfort, as well as Matthew, Priscilla, David, Amos, Emmanuel, and Jojo. Last week we had a great time on taking your first steps up the property ladder with Silabe and Dansua Siamisa. If you missed that show and the ensuing reviews, get it from Graphic Online or find it on our various platforms, including Facebook. Tonight's edition will be summed up on page 18 of the Graphic Business and also on Facebook. Tonight, we turn our attention to managing stress and mental health in a fast-paced world. I am privileged to have two people who will bring us a deeper understanding of this subject. It is said that mental health issues tend to take a big toll on the health and wealth of Ghanaians. Among the mental health problems afflicting Ghanaians are depression, bipolar disorders, schizophrenia, anxiety conditions, drug abuse, especially tramadol of late, alcohol abuse, and suicide. Sitting in there almost unnoticed is anxiety disorders. A study in 2009 showed that 41% of Ghanaians had psychological distress. And for 19%, approximately 1 out of 5 people in this statistic, the distress was moderate to severe, enough to give rise to mental illness. Let's talk about this. The 41% psychological distress and all the related spin-offs translated to productivity loss amounting to 7% loss of the national GDP. 7%. Using Ghana's rebased GDP of 65.5 billion, I'm going to tell you shortly how much money we lose by ignoring what is such an important part of our national lives. I have in the studios Professor Angela Oforiata, a clinical psychologist, and Kwabena Dapa Afri, a corporate executive, who will share with us his own experience and how rising up out of it has given him the assurance that everyone can get better if they connect with the right people. Angie and Kwabena, welcome to Springboard.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for making time to be with us.
Pleasure.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
There's something about this show. Everyone wants to hear what you have to say. But before I bring you on, let me say that in our Data is King segment, Amos is the numbers man. He will tell us why there are 10 people in this studio and the outer studio. And per the statistics Amos has, 6 of us are stressed. I am one. So the remaining 9, Amos has to show us the remaining 5 who are stressed. He says 6 out of every 10 people are stressed. So he will tell us the statistics for that one and 5 possible causes of the stress. You can deny the first 4, but the 5th one is a trap. You will fall into it, believe me. That's when Amos comes in the Data is King segment. In our Game Changer segment, Jojo will tell us about the power of leverage. It's big. How to connect with people in achieving your dream. In our Wonderful World segment, I'll tell you why every contribution you make to the health sector can make this world a better place. You're going to enjoy the show. But let's start with our quote for the day. And let's go to Jojo. Jojo, what's our quote for today?
So today's quote is from William James, who says, "The greatest weapon against stress is our ability to choose one thought over another."
Give it to me again.
The greatest weapon against stress is our ability to choose one thought over another.
Will this be a case of selective focus or self-control?
That's an interesting angle, but I would look at it as more of substitution. Because if you look at Philippians 4 verse 6 to 7, it says, "Be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be known to God, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your minds and hearts through Christ Jesus." And let the church say,
Amen. All right, that's a nice way to start. So we are in the studio with Kwabena, who has a story to tell, and Angela, who has the interpretation to the story. Kwabena will tell us how a physical challenge led to a mental health challenge, and how it totally changed his whole life. And Angela will help us understand how frequent is it in our lives that we find such situations. What is the implication of what Kwabena went through? And what are the do's and don'ts of managing people with this kind of situation? Let's start with you, Kwabena. Take us back to 2012. Before we came to the studio, you're saying that the day it happened was exactly a day Hearts played Kotoko.
Yes.
And the scoreline was the same.
The same, 2-1.
All right.
And being a Hearts fan, obviously, I wasn't happy.
Right.
But I wouldn't say that triggered the anxiety. It was a Sunday morning. I went out to meet some friends. We sat at the usual drinking spot that we sit on Sundays and took some alcohol. And on my way back home, I heard the scoreline, Kotoka Trash has 2-1. I got home, ate supper, and as I was going to my bedroom, I just felt some awkward thing moving in my body, as if I couldn't walk well. I was swaying, and my whole mind, I couldn't focus. So I rushed out of the room, and I should confess, I didn't used to go to church on Sundays, and suddenly the words started coming out of my mouth. The devil said, "I God save me," and obviously residents around heard me screaming, and then they took me to the hospital. And after being given some 6 drips, I came back and I heard the doctor whispering to one of the nurses that the condition this guy went through, he could have passed on. So when I got well, that thought was in me, I could have died. So I started taking normal drugs. I didn't start with anxiety drugs. So I went to another health facility and they started giving me some anxiety drugs, and because they realized that I was not functioning properly. So I started with one drug. I don't know whether Prof is paroxetine. I started with that drug, and that after taking that drug, I realized that after taking that drug, I always had experience of headache. So in 2014, I was in my office when, I don't know, a lady came to me. She said she wanted to come and do some catering services at our office. When she came, I was experiencing some unpleasant feelings. As I'll say, I was having the attack. So when she was talking to me, I told her I wasn't feeling fine. And she asked me why. And I said, I have this anxiety system that comes on and off. And then she started laughing. And obviously, somebody who is not well, and you have come, I don't know you, I'm telling you my sickness, and you are laughing. But I kept my cool. She came a week after, and then still I wasn't feeling fine. Then I told her I'm still experiencing those symptoms. Then she told me that there's a health that she has experienced that before. That's why she was laughing that day. But she can recommend me to a doctor who was in Cape Coast. I was doing locum in one of the hospitals at North Canada. I don't want to mention the hospital because I haven't got the permission from them. So, but the doctor comes on Friday, so I have to book before I can see the doctor, because the doctor is a very good doctor. He has a lot of patients. So she called the doctor for me. I booked, I went there. And when I went there, that time I was feeling jittery and I was afraid. Then the doctor asked me why. I said, I'm afraid that something will happen to me. They said, what here, baby, I was sent to baby. Then that started, I started reflecting, if something will happen to me. That's what will happen to me.
Let me take you back a couple of steps. Right from the day in April 2012 when it started, how was it manifesting itself? What were the symptoms you were showing?
I used to get annoyed easily.
Easily angered, okay. What else?
And jittery.
Okay.
Palpitations. I wasn't sleeping well. Obviously, they gave me olazapine. That was helping me to sleep.
Right.
Yeah, so that's that. But sometimes you take the drug, you sleep 9 hours. And sometimes you take the drug, you sleep 7 hours. So the sleep was not even.
Right. So let me ask you, for somebody who's a busy corporate executive, you became easily angered, jittery, you were having palpitations, and bad sleep. Did it affect your work?
I would say, in terms of giving job giving job to my boss on time, it didn't affect it. But relating to my staff, it affected me because they realized that I had changed. I was the type who was always happy, easy go boss or subordinate, and suddenly they realized that I was reserved, and I was not talking like at first. I was keeping to myself.
What was the reaction of your work colleagues? Was it helpful? Did they even know what was happening to you?
Initially, no, but the one who was sharing office with me understood me. So when we realized that I'm quiet, they would take me out in the car to a place where we shall go and sit and eat together. And they was always encouraging me to talk. Come now, speak. Come now, let's. He actually did well because he actually made me always talk and feel like before.
What about home?
At home, obviously my spouse didn't understand it initially until we went to meet the doctor
together.
Yes, together. The doctor explained that this is a symptom that you need to also have to understand your husband and buy into his what is going through. I must say I put a lot of stress on her because if I won't sleep, she can't sleep.
Right.
I remember one night I told you before you came in, I slept from 11 to 11:30, 30 minutes. From 11:30 to 4 a.m. None of my eyes closed. I was afraid to sleep.
Was it fear? Did you have fear at the time?
Yes.
The fear of what?
Fear because I realized that when I'm about to sleep, I felt maybe some numbness in my legs. And the moment that thing started, I shake, then I can't sleep again.
Right. I'm going to come back to you to explain further what you went through because you're still here today. We are talking and we are just having a conversation. But what you describe sounds scary if you're not part of the story or you didn't see it. Today we're talking about it and we are giggling about it and everything, but I'm sure it must have been very scary at the time. Let me come to Professor Ofuriatta to help us to understand. Is this something that is common? Is it something that is even normal? He describes a physical condition and the fear arising out of it that triggered a mental condition. Help us to situate this whole discussion within the context of mental health as a whole. Doc.
Right. Well, you rightly you mentioned anxiety disorders as a little known disorder. And if you went to any of our big psychiatric hospitals, you wouldn't find very many people reporting with anxiety disorders. But, and there are different kinds, and this one that he talks about sounds like a panic disorder. And in a panic disorder, Sigmund Freud, a psychoanalyst, or our first psychoanalyst, would say it's your body just misbehaving on you. Because all of a sudden you can just have symptoms of intense fear reactions. So you can sweat, your heart rate goes up, your breathing is funny, or it becomes very fast. The deep, the most common part or the critical symptom there is a sense of impending doom. Something terrible is going to happen to me.
And let me interrupt and ask you, what makes a person feel, believe, have the sense of foreboding that something bad will happen? What makes it? What triggers it?
I think it's as Freud would say, when your body starts misbehaving on you, you think, many people think I'm going to have a heart attack.
Right.
So that's a sense of impending. Something is not quite right in my body. Why is my heart skipping a beat? Why is it beating so fast all of a sudden? Why is my breathing up? Something terrible must be happening to me. And that's why.
In your case, did you mentioned that because of what the doctor said, you had this fear that you could possibly die. How big a contribution was what he heard at the time?
Well, he already had the first panic.
Right.
Which is what landed him in hospital
right.
in the first place. So that in itself is a really, I don't know what's happening to my body. Something
right.
terrible must be happening. And so for the doctor to then say that, oh, he could have died, just reinforces that sense of impending doom.
Right.
I've had a patient in the past who was much older and who was afraid, or he'd had a heart attack, and then he began to have panic attacks. So he thought that he was actually having another heart attack, and he wasn't. That heart attack matter was ruled out, and we realized he was having panic attacks. And so it's really a sense that it's like a lion is standing in front of you ready to snap at you, but there's
right.
no lion. It's just your body. Sometimes when you've had the first panic, other things can trigger the panic.
Right.
For example, if you had a panic when you were in a trotro, every time you go into a trotro, you might be afraid that you will get a panic and you
right.
need to run out.
Right.
So there's also a sense of I need to escape from this situation.
Right.
So that compounds the problem because you might need to escape, and you might also then say to yourself, I'm not even going to go out so that I have a panic.
Right. I had a colleague who had a panic during an exam situation. And unfortunately, any time we had an exam situation, it would repeat itself.
Panic.
And it was so bad. It actually affected him. And we were doing a master's program together. And it kept recurring anytime he sat behind an exam paper.
Yes.
Let me, for the benefit of our listeners, what we're trying to do is to demystify mental health. In fact, when you mentioned, Angie, that if you walked into any psychiatric facility, what went through my mind is, how many of our regular listeners would even consider going to a psychiatric facility for help? Just the very name. I mean, where were you this morning? I had to pass through a psychiatric facility before coming to work. Everyone will pause and look at you and say, hey, hold on, are you good? It's just a certain mindset we have about a psychiatric facility. But even before we go to that, in a previous engagement we had about mental health, you drew up a list of things that made all of us start asking ourselves, are we good? So just for the benefit of educating our listeners, what are some of the interesting signs, almost normal? He mentioned bad sleep, palpitations, but just give us a checklist that we could work with that gives you an idea that you could be distressed or psychologically you would not be in the best frame.
Well, if your body suddenly started to have signs of fear, then like Kwabna had, then that's a sign that things are not well. If you were not sleeping properly, that would be a sign that all is not well. If you lost your appetite when you were a healthy eater, or if you find that you're eating too much, if you find that you're sleeping too much, that may be a sign that all is not well with you. If you begin to have thoughts that keep recurring, which you are not able to stop, that would be a sign that you are not well. And then going more on the more serious scale, if you begin to hear voices nobody hears, or see things that nobody sees, that's a more serious sign of mental illness. But I think for all of us, if our relationships began to suffer, for example, or if we found that we couldn't control our desire for substances, like you need to keep relying on coffee to keep awake, or smoking cigarettes more and more, or turning to cannabis or cocaine, and then you lose control over your ability not to have it when you don't want it, then you know that you are into an addiction. So those are some of the things that come to mind for when you should begin to ask yourself, is everything okay with me?
24 minutes past the hour of 7 o'clock. This is Springboard, your virtual university. Today we're talking about managing stress and mental health in a fast-paced world. This show is dedicated to all those who find 24 hours not enough to meet your corporate aspirations and your business dreams. Because invariably, that is one big trigger point of stress. And for many people, the stress from the workplace is one of the biggest challenges that you are dealing with. Professor Ofuriata says, look out for these interesting signs that you need help. One is a sense of fear. 2 is sleeping little or sleeping too much. 3 is eating little or eating too much. 4 is recurrent thoughts that you just cannot control. 5 is voices you are hearing that no one is hearing. 6, things you are seeing no one is seeing. 7, relationships are suffering. And 8, uncontrolled desire or addiction to coffee, cigarettes, cannabis, and everything in between. We're going to take a brief and alcohol. Okay, we're going to take a brief break, but this is Springboard, your virtual university, brought to you by Joy 99.7 FM and Legacy. My guest for tonight, Professor Angela Ofuriata. She's a clinical psychologist, and Kobna Dapafriye is a corporate executive who's telling us that what he went through tells him that everyone going through this kind of challenge can be helped if you talk to the right people, adopt the right approach, and get help. What is it that you yourself are going through? I'm going to try and open the phone lines today. Call and let's have an honest discussion. Is somebody you love going through this kind of situation? Are you yourself going through too much stress that you cannot handle? Let's be honest with ourselves and let's see if we can help somebody tonight to just move on and become a better person. Let me bring you a brief break and some sponsor messages. When I come back, I'm going to tell you in the Wonderful World segment how a little contribution to healthcare has changed one person's life in particular, and it's just so beautiful. Last week we talked about prisoners who were matriculating into the University of Cape Coast, but on the Salom prison campus. Today I'm going to bring you something about health and how a little contribution from you and I can make the world a better place. Please don't go away.
Hello, Lieutenant. Thank you for showing up at our monthly meeting. I have some good news for you today. Electricity credit, Hey! Oh, relax. I am not increasing it. I just want you to know, from today, you have your own meter. So now you buy exactly what you want to use. Flexi bundling.
What's your customize, Anna?
Oh, yes. Just like that. And it doesn't expire too.
Life is good with MTN Flexi Bundle. Now you have full control to pick and choose your very own bundle packages. Whether you want to bundle 3 pesos, 20 pesos, 20 cities, 30 pesos, or even 115 cities, we dare for you. Just dial *138# or *170# to enter any amount. And bingo, you are good to go. So go ahead and enjoy bundles that don't expire. That's why we're good together. We dare for you everywhere you go.
UMB was established in 1972 as the premier bank for the corporate and private sector in Ghana. From our very beginning, as the only Ghanaian bank serving all categories of businesses, we set a standard for excellence and innovation over the past 45 years. We've built a financially healthy and strong bank, demonstrated our commitment to our customers and to growing businesses, and exhibited originality and innovation at every turn. At UMB, our focus is built around people, service, products, and technology. These are the key to our present success and our future triumphs. At UMB, we're poised to make a difference not only with our customers, but also in the banking industry. We invite you to share in our future. Our future starts now with you.
It's 28 minutes past the hour of 7, and this is that big show we've been talking about for a while now. The show on stress and mental health. And we have many of you listening online and making your contributions. Stephen Esri says, a nice topic which needs urgent attention in our nation. Watching live from my corner. Sadiq Abubakar says, I think most of these issues are not complied with by many organizations. They neglect work-life balance in the organization. Let me bring you the wonderful world segment, the segment that just celebrates what is beautiful about our country, what is beautiful about the world, so that we don't just talk about the problems and the difficulties. Sometimes there are nice things that must remind us of the greatness that is inside us. So this morning, the International Central Gospel Church Christ Temple presented an amount of 200,000 Ghana cedis to the Children's Cancer Unit of the Kolebu Teaching Hospital as the church's contribution for the year 2020. Is the 10th year continuous of engagement, and in the first 9 years, the hospital got a monthly contribution every month for 9 years. This year, it's a one-off annual contribution. But that's not the story. That's not what caught my attention. It was the response, the interaction afterwards. And I heard the story of Rihanna, an 8-year-old girl from northern Ghana with a single mother, unemployed, who brought her crying for help. Obviously, without money, she came to the pediatric oncology unit at Kolebu. Due to the generous support that the hospital or the unit got, she was able to receive free treatment. She completed the treatment, including chemotherapy and surgery. Now, this is somebody who came with kidney cancer, something very, very complicated. But guess what? For 3 years, since she received the treatment, she's been cancer-free. She's gone back to school, and her mother has returned to the north. This is what makes this a great country, that a little help from somebody can give somebody a better life. On this show, I pray for Rihanna, that she will grow up to change this country, become maybe like a president, somebody who will contribute to building this nation. So we look back and say, just because somebody cared, this world is a better place. What a wonderful world. Please help me clap, 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 clap. If you have a story worth celebrating, please let's share it on the show next week. Send it to us. The number to send it to 024-9999-555. Let's celebrate what is beautiful about our country, because there's so much to celebrate. But let me come to you, Angie. Just this idea of supporting our facilities. Earlier this year, there was some support also for the Mental Health Authority. But just the fact that private individuals, churches, organizations can support, how big is it in the delivery of healthcare?
Oh, it's really a wonderful thing. The Accra Psychiatric Hospital has regular people that support, that go in for like the children's ward or something and so forth, and it makes a big difference, a huge difference. There are people who go evangelize in hospitals even as big as Kolebu and bring God's love to patients there. The children's child health is a wonderful place. I know the doctors are really dedicated and they have some support. The kidney, I know there is amazing support for dialysis, and we have one or two huge donors that make it possible for people to continue, because it's a very expensive treatment. So to companies that give and to people that give, I say hooray, well done.
Amen to that. Let me come back to our discussion that we've been having this evening about mental health. You've shared some of the common symptoms. I'm going to go to the point I made about the impact on economics, because we are doing one show on health every month, and people are asking, this show is typically about economic empowerment. It's about creating wealth. It's about driving us to become the best that we can be. And so how do you find space for career, finance, property, and then you also find one slot for health? And we've been discussing since the beginning of the year that health is a big economic issue. So if I used my primary calculation of using the current exchange rate, the GDP of Ghana using 2018 figures rebase is about 360 billion cedis. That means that 7% of it is approximately 25 billion cedis lost as a result of the loss of productivity arising from mental health. Angie, are you surprised? I know this figure will be very welcome at the Ministry of Finance. 25 billion will do a lot of good.
Absolutely. So that study I was part of that study.
Wow.
Yes. The figure came out of work that Yale University and the University of Ghana, ISA, did. They were doing an economic survey.
Right.
And they put in one psychological distress scale called the Kessler. And that's where, around the country, we found that about 20% of respondents, and this is not people with mental illness, this is just normal people, saying, I have so much distress in my life. And that's like the 20%, almost 30% you talked about.
Right.
Mild to moderate psychological distress. And that's and when you quantified it by asking them how many days they lost in a month or in the last 30 days due to not feeling well about themselves, that's when they said, I've lost 2 days, 3 days, half day, whatever, because I didn't feel great, not because of physical illness.
Right.
And when they put all of that together,
right,
the economists came up with the figure of a 7% loss to GDP. So, I mean, we wrote that paper and we were not at all surprised by this number.
When you think of it and just calculate the number of hours the person couldn't come to work because they were not feeling too great, they were not feeling too well, it sounds like an isolated case. When you strike the averages and juxtapose against the national GDP and come out with a number like this, suddenly you ask yourself, this is huge.
It is huge. It is huge. And so whenever we speak to policymakers about it and we mention the 7% GDP, they sit up because suddenly they realize that we're not joking about this. This is really impacting us. So when you have a church that doesn't close at that goes all night, every day, with drums, or a nightclub near a residential area that goes on all weekend, and people can't sleep, you're creating mental health difficulties in the neighborhood. And the mental health difficulties can translate into physical health problems.
Right.
The anxiety can, lead to heightened levels of blood pressure, heart rates and so forth. So then they're beginning to spend money on physical causes as well as the psychological difficulty and loss of productivity. When that person goes to work, they're going to sleep all of Monday and Tuesday because they haven't slept in the whole weekend. So municipalities have to have some control over the things that create problems for their residents. That's just one. If you're sitting in traffic for 4 hours a day, 2 hours to go to work, 2 hours to come back, and all you're doing in traffic is just looking at your time, and wishing you were home. And by the time you're home, you're so stressed about this. I mean, your health is going to suffer. Your physical and your mental health are going to suffer.
So the design of our cities and the residential arrangements are a big contributing factor.
Absolutely. Absolutely. People load their children into their cars at 4 or 5 in the morning to bring them to school, and to be able to overcome the traffic and all of that, get to school on time. The kids are tired. How are they studying? So if you repeat 1 year, that's extra school fees that you're paying. And if you're not studying well in your formative years, you haven't learned the lessons, it's compounding in your future.
Why don't we know? Why are we so ignorant about mental health? Let me open the phone lines. Maybe I'm not the only one who is ignorant. The more I learn, the more I feel that I don't know. I've learned about this for a few years, and anytime I sit in this kind of discussion, I feel I still don't know enough, because I find out something else that is a contributing factor that we are ignoring. I think as a nation, we literally are lost as far as this issue is concerned.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to try a statistic, but several people standing in influential positions have no clue about the trigger points of mental health. The number to call, 030-221-6541. Just call and talk to us. Let us know. Are you yourself having mental health challenges? Let's have an honest discussion. Are you struggling with things that you don't understand? You can't sleep. You find yourself over-relying on on the coffee, the narcotics, the something. And are you finding yourself in a situation where nobody seems to understand you, and yet you know it's not just right? Let's go to the phone lines. Hello, good evening.
Hello, good evening.
Your name and where are you calling from, please?
Good evening, Robert. My name is Richard, calling from North Commission. Yes,
Richard, tell me, are you challenged with a mental health condition yourself?
Yes, I remember somewhere last month in December, I had work overload from work. Yes, I was so stressed that I felt like I was going out of my mind, and I found solace in a book called Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goleman. It helped me so well. It taught me exactly what I was going through and how to deal with it. And by reading that book, I taught myself to control myself and to take it easy on myself. And by God's grace, I'm doing quite very well now.
Thank you very much, Daniel. So you found solace in a book. Is it one of the ways to turn things around?
We have some great books written. Emotional intelligence talks about you being able to...
Let me take one more caller and then I'll come back to you too. Hello, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Your name, where are you calling from, please?
My name is Dennis.
Dennis, tell me, are you challenged in one way or another by stress and related issues?
Pardon?
Are you challenged yourself by stress?
Yes. It's quite informative. This was more factors that we don't sleep well. Sometimes I sleep and I wake up around like 3 a.m. I can't sleep again and all that. And sometimes my mind is just walking around trying to put the dots together, but I'm not able to fix the dots together. I don't know. It's kind of mental though, but as you enlighten us on it, I think I'm clearly understanding where I'm heading towards. I think it's a really good show for some of us who don't have small fundamentals of information sharing. I think it's very important. And thanks to your team as well.
Thank you very much. So the number to call 030-221-6541 or 0244340437. Are you dealing with stress and feeling sometimes like it's going over the top? Have you even considered that before tonight that what you are going through is a mental health issue? Are you one of those like me who, before I began to learn about mental health, the whole idea of mental health was like abodam? And you're correct. Let's talk about this. Hello, good evening.
Okay.
Hello, good evening. Hello, good evening.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you very well. Go ahead.
Yes. Thank you very much for the opportunity. My name is Kofi from Dansuman.
Kofi, go ahead.
Well, as one chief psychiatrist once said some time back, many Ghanaians are walking the streets and they actually have mental issues that they themselves are not aware of. So I want to ask if there are programs in place that can screen people, because we have breast cancer screening, all kinds of screening going on. What about mental health? Shouldn't we also have that in place so that people can be screened? And if you have a leader, for instance, you work in a company, it could be the president, it could be your minister, and sometimes the decisions that they take, you realize that this guy or this lady, there's something not well upset. What do you do? Do they have programs in place to ensure that such people, even pastors, some of them, the kinds of things that they say, sometimes I think that it's a mental health problem, but then they try to relate it to religion and impose all kinds of things on you. So I have those two concerns, and if the lady in the studio can address them.
Thank you very much. Let's come to the studio and ask, Prof, are there screening programs that people could voluntarily go and ask for help in being screened?
Well, it is possible to put them in place. It's possible for a person to walk into, say, Kolebu Teaching Hospital and ask to see a psychologist and get screened. It's possible to walk into any of the psychiatric hospitals and ask to see a psychologist or a psychiatrist and get some help. But then companies also can put in place what we call employee assistance programs,
right,
where they can screen everybody they hire, not to throw them out, but
to support them better.
To support them better.
Right.
And those are really good programs to do.
Would it be the case, Doctor, that the the few resource persons we have are so overstretched, dealing with, if I may call it so respectfully, real cases that you coming to do the cursory checkup will not be a priority for them.
Oh, it was such a pleasure always in our clinic to have people who came in and said, who walked in and said, I can't sleep, I can't. For you, it may seem to you that this is nothing because you're not shouting at the top of your head. But for us, the fact that you come in on your own and you are ready to talk about it is a wonderful, and you're coming in at a time when it's not that severe.
It's good news.
It's good news.
So as we speak, we can announce that any listener who feels they need help can come to Kolebu and come and...
Yes, Kolebu has 21 psychologists. Can you believe it?
Right. So there's help.
There's help.
Right.
There's help.
Let me come to Kobna and find out how you are now.
I wouldn't say I am out of the woods. As I told you, I made a personal commitment on 31st December 2015 when I was getting better that if God willing, I'm able to come out of this anxiety disorder. I'll try and educate people about it, how they can come out of it. Luckily, I met a lady through Ghanaian Chronicle. For the purpose of this program I call her Effie. She's come out of an NGO called Others Like Me. It's one word, Others Like Me. Right. You can search for it on Facebook. And I'm part of that NGO. We have doctors, psychiatric doctors. We have some NGOs who are also into mental health. And I'm happy Prof is here. I'll take Prof's number and give it to the lady to add it to our WhatsApp group. See, we are about 35 now. Drug addicts who have also are recovering, depressed patients who are recovering, anxiety. And we have met once. We met at Oyarifa. We got to know ourselves. And we are supposed to meet again in March. And through that, we educate ourselves.
So you think that that's your way of giving back to society?
Yes.
When you look back at the period when you were so vulnerable and unsure, and you look now at yourself and how much you are in control, how well you've done, what goes through your mind?
I was just telling you when we came to the program that 2 days ago, I realized that I was feeling uneasy, and the thought came into me that, come now, just take warm water. A small voice gets to me, take warm water. I took the warm water. I was still feeling a bit uneasy. Then the thought came in there, come now, just drink a cup of natural cocoa, the bitter one. I took it, and about 30 minutes after, I was okay. And since then, I realized that when I'm getting jittery. I just have to relax.
Right.
Initially, if you tell me to calm down, madam is a witness. If you tell any anxiety patient to calm down, the person will not understand you. What do you mean by I should calm down?
Right.
But now when you tell me to calm down,
you can calm down. It's so much better. Let me ask you a question before I go to our data is king segment. Somebody's asking on Facebook, what is the place of meditation in managing stress?
It's a very important thing to do if you know how to meditate,
right.
Because that brings down all the physical symptoms of stress.
Right.
So it's key. Apart from meditation, we have what we call different kinds of relaxation techniques, like tensing and relaxing your muscles, deep breathing, visualizing a peaceful environment. A simple one, exercise.
Right. We'll do some more of this. For sure. Amos, you are going to give us a statistic. But even more importantly, I can tell you what, that fifth point, I can bet that many people will be guilty. What do you have for us in the data exchange segment?
Okay, so before we go to the fifth point, the data exchange segment provides credible data for decision making, analysis, and prediction.
Right.
Tonight, our data is on stress and mental health. A survey by the American Psychological Association revealed that 63% of respondents experienced psychological symptoms of stress. That means 6 out of every 10 people was stressed.
Right.
Research shows that stress negatively affects mental health. Key factors that cause stress and by extension mental health challenges are: 1. Pressure to succeed. 2. Financial worries. 3. Housing worries. 4. Long-term health conditions.
Pause. The fifth one that everyone will fall into the pit. Please give it to us.
Feeling a need to respond to messages instantly.
On your phone. I'm telling you. Hey, you are. when I saw the fifth one, I said this one. I'm telling you, look, everybody outside the studio, everybody in the studio, you're all guilty. We hold our phones all day long. I'm telling you, we are all stressed. What's your closing thoughts?
So, indeed, we are all guilty. And our question to the listeners: which of these 5 are you most guilty of?
Number 5. 11 minutes to the hour of 8 o'clock. Before I come back to my guest to hit on that, let me go straight to Jojo for the game changer segment. Jojo, what do you have for us today?
So, if someone asked you who the biggest pop star in the world was, the chances are you would mention Beyonce. The Houston-born singer is the second most awarded musician of all time, and her acclaimed work translates into massive cultural power. Now, in addition to counting notable figures like Barack Obama among her fans, Beyonce has a massive online platform. She has 138 million followers on Instagram alone, which is more than the population of Japan. This actually makes her the 9th most followed person in the whole world. So with all this reach, what did Beyonce do when she needed to launch Ivy Park, her new clothing brand with Adidas? Now, one of the most impactful tips from today's show on mental health was just being able to reach out to others. And that's exactly what Beyonce did. Today, our game changer is leverage. Now, to get out the word about her brand, Beyonce sent a selection of items from the collection to celebrities such as Reese Witherspoon, Zendaya, Cardi B, and Hailey Bieber, among others. Now, the items arrived in huge orange boxes, and all the celebs who received them shared videos online showing off their new outfits. But why does all that matter? Well, just between those 4 people I mentioned, they have almost 170 million followers, way more than Beyonce herself. But even more importantly, some of their followers would never have heard of Ivy Park if Beyonce had only released it on her platform. Now, having millions of followers is great, but did the strategy work? Absolutely. Within 24 hours, the entire collection had sold out. Leveraging the networks of influential people is a highly effective marketing strategy. 49% of people, that is basically half of your prospective customers, rely on influencer recommendations, and a further 74% of people trust social networks to help them make purchase decisions. Author Willie Nelson put it best: when we leverage, we aggregate and organize existing resources to achieve success. Now this week, whether in our careers, in our finances, our property, or our health issues, let us reach out to others who can potentially help us to achieve more than we ever could on our own. This has been the Game Changer with Jojo Okran. Have a phenomenal week.
Absolutely phenomenal. And I can imagine somebody just writing this down and making money out of it. Jojo, you do all. It is 8 minutes to the hour of 8 o'clock. Let me come back to my guests and get their reactions. First, on the point number 5. Angie, are we guilty or not guilty?
Oh, yes. Our medical students did a study, our final year medical students did a study on FaceTime, on how much time they spend on their phones, and they also use their phones to study. But I mean, it's truly an issue. So out of that, we learned from the research around the world that the length of time spent on social media correlates with mental health difficulties.
Right.
Positively. So the longer you spend on social media and on the net and so forth, the more likely it is that you're going to be anxious or depressed.
Why? What is it? Just give us a follow up. What is the correlation? Why is there a positive correlation?
There's a we think that the correlation. The reason is the more time you spend, the less time you spend in actual contact with other people.
Which has some cathartic effect.
It gives you pleasure.
Right.
You know, being with people, somebody smiles at you, you smile back. They say something, I like what you're wearing, it makes you feel good. I like your hair, it makes you feel good. If you're gaming, it's not
intense,
real
but not
human contact.
right.
It's not human, and we're social creatures.
What about trolling and media bullying? Does it add to it? There's a lot of there's some intense trolling sometimes. I mean, people tease you, they come at you very hard. I mean, is it a contributing factor?
On the net?
Yes.
Well, there's all kinds of negative experiences on the net, and well, I mean, those haven't been pinpointed as the reasons why, but I'm sure that there's enough people also suffering from, the bullying and online.
Right.
And I think particularly for young people that parents need to be aware that if you're giving a phone to a young person, you really just want to give them a phone that's basic.
Right. Some level of control.
So you have some level of control.
I'm going to come back to you to give us your closing thoughts. But before that, I'm going to tell you the one big takeaway, and none of you can guess what it is. Whenever I listen to the show, I ask myself, what am I walking away with as the one thing I've learned? And there are several things I've learned, but when I come back from this break, I'm going to tell you which one I would consider the biggest lesson from the show today. Please don't go away.
How do you intend to sustain yourself when you retire?
My children will take care of me when I'm retired. I am a professional. I can work till 80.
Some people leave their retirement to chance. How are you planning yours? Your attitude today can help you avoid struggling to survive when you retire. With 50 Ghana cedis monthly investment in the Axis Pension Plan, you can accumulate 700,000 Ghana cedis in 30 years. This investment will guarantee you retirement incomes that far exceeds your current income. Visit www.axispension.com to sign up or call 0302-543-287 or 0544-321-966 for details. Axis Pension Trust, your reliable partner in pensions.
When you don't have the Enterprise Advantage app, you're not in control.
Boss.
Yes, Akwesi.
I'm at where they sell the coats. What size do you like?
What coat?
Coat, office coat.
I said get me a quotation from Enterprise.
Oh. What? Save yourself from the stress. Take advantage of the Enterprise Advantage app. Make your claims, check statements, request for a quote, and buy a policy from any of our subsidiaries. What's more, you can also get health tips, traffic information, find mechanic shops, and more on your Enterprise Advantage app. Download the Enterprise Advantage app on Google Play and Apple Store now. Here is to 95 years of trust.
Enterprise, your advantage.
Springboard is your virtual university, and we are getting so many messages from all over the world. People asking questions, people wanting to be part of it. One theme is flying through all of them. This is an important discussion we need to have. Listen, just because we are a listening institution, we will flip the arrangement. Instead of having the health discussion next month at the end of the month, we are bringing it as the first of the month. So next week, Prof will be back, and this time we'll be answering your questions and helping you to understand. We'll add on to our resource and help you to understand where you are, and even more importantly, what you must do. I'm going to come back to my guest to tell me their closing thoughts, but let me tell you my one big takeout from this discussion. I've learned a lot about anger, being jittery, palpitations, bad sleep. I've learned the various signs of panic disorder, but the one thing that is my biggest takeout is that 4 hours spent in traffic a day is a potential trigger for mental health challenges. Finished. So if you live on the outskirts of Accra and you spend 2 hours commuting in and 2 hours commuting out, all those symptoms that you are facing that are affecting your relationships, that makes you restless and you can't sleep and you are drinking a bit more of something that you should drink. Listen, it is tied down to one simple thing. The traffic, the feeling of being boxed in, and the feeling of being helpless is a mental health issue. I've learned something tonight. It's 2 minutes to the hour of 8 o'clock. Angie, 30 seconds. Your closing thoughts for today.
Talk about feeling distressed. It's okay to ask for help.
It's okay.
It's okay.
It doesn't mean that you are weak.
No, there's no weakness about that. There's
right.
Strength in asking for help.
Oh, really? I could have added that one to my lessons.
Yes.
There's strength in asking for help.
There is great strength in asking for help.
Wow. Come now, let me come to you. Bible says all things work together for good. You look back nobody would have wished to have a mental health challenge. You had one. You've come out of it largely. You're literally fine, and you're using your experience to help others. When you look back at what you went through, what one big takeout do you have? What positive thing can you see from your experience?
So one positive thing, as I told you, that fateful Sunday, I wasn't a church goer. One positive thing that came out of that, I became more prayerful. And I would say one religious man of God, you know him, Kakabedin. He actually played an instrumental role in my recovery. And since then, I attend his church.
Right.
And that's one
so your faith in God has benefited.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
We'll definitely talk some more about this, but I want to say a big thank you to you, Professor Angela Oforiata, for making time to join us. Kwabena Depa for sharing your story so openly, and I've got lots of messages saying thank you to you for talking about your life. So people feel free now to say, listen, I also have had this stress and this challenge that I want to talk about. Coming up next is Walk with Jesus, and the topic is knowing your spouse's temperament. I definitely will be listening in to Amos Kelvin Annan joining Pastor Ransford Abosi. Till we come your way again next week with part 2 of our discussion about stress and mental health. My name is Albert Okran on behalf of Comfort, Matthew, Priscilla, Amos, Emmanuel, David and Jojo. God bless you. God bless you. And God bless you. Good night.